of people who can see it tonight, it will always be there. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you what we need to get started. Okay, and I've already trimmed my fur. So if you don't know how to do that, there's a video, I think last week, where I show you how to trim your fur. Because with fur fabric, you can't just grab it and start sewing. You have to make sure you trim your seam allowances first. So let's flip this around and I'll show you what we're doing. Okay, let's make sure that's on. Okay, so I have my faux fur here. I probably have about, okay, and the dimensions that I use, like really I made this up. Well, I saw a picture of it and I made it up. So there is no pattern. So I just kind of estimated it. So I have my faux fur cut. It is, let's see, across I did 15 inches and then up and down. So the length of the calf I did 13 inches, which would be fine for, you know, I think I made one pair and gave it to a little girl who was like 9 years old and it was fine for her. So I'm doing these for my cousins and they're, see, 7. She's gonna kill me if I don't know her age. 7 and 11, I believe they both are. So the faux fur, and then I also have a lining. So I have my lining fabric, and you don't necessarily have to line it, but I just like lining stuff. And this might be just the back of it might be a little scratchy on your leg, so I just make sure I line it. So I have 2 pieces of faux fur cut. It's 15 inches across, and then the length of it here is 13 inches. And I've already trimmed my seam allowances here. So make sure you go ahead and do that all the way around because it's too hard to try to sew on it and it just won't look right once you sew the two together. So I trimmed my seam allowances all the way around and I have some elastic. So the elastic that I have, this is probably about 1/4 of an inch wide. It doesn't have to be 1/4 of an inch wide. You could use 1/2 an inch. You could use 1 inch wide. You don't even have to use elastic. Like I said, I was just I saw a picture and I was just kind of figuring it out and just made it the way I wanted to. But the elastic, I'm thinking, will just kind of help it, you know, stay on their leg a little bit better in case this is a little big for them. Okay, so I have my elastic cut. So the 2 pieces of fabric I have to go again. So my faux fur is 15 inches wide. I cut it 15 inches wide and then 13 inches high. And then I have 2 pieces of elastic. Well, 4 pieces because I have a piece at the top and the bottom. So 4 pieces of elastic that are 12 inches wide each. And then, you know, just make sure you cut your lining fabric the same as your faux fur. So you should have 2 pieces of lining that are, 15 across by 13 down. Okay, enough of that. All right, so I'm gonna put that aside for a minute because what I do first is sew the elastic onto the lining. And this fur is already getting in my nose, so hang on, let me grab my sewing machine here. And I've seen some people, Jenny Crawford, in case okay. I've seen some people, at one point, like I always just trim my faux fur with scissors. Even if I'm making a coat, I've trimmed it with scissors. So you just go and you trim away your seam allowance. But I've seen some people do it with a razor. And I actually tried that with like my husband's electric razor, so don't tell him. It was an old one that he's probably not using. And I tried that and it just wasn't working out that well for me. It works, but for me, I just find that the scissors work better. So either way, use a electric razor or use a pair of scissors. You just make sure you cut away a seam allowance. Okay, so do that first. You have to prep your fur before you can sew it. So that's why we don't use fur a lot in sewing class because it's just too much work. And the kids would start complaining they'd want me to trim it for them, and I won't. Okay, let's make sure I'm all threaded here. I think I'm good. Okay. Just tilt you. Okay. And I didn't measure anything out here. Like I said, I have 12 inches of elastic. I have 2 pieces, one for the top. Okay, hang on. Yeah, that's the width. Okay, I had to make sure I was right. Okay, so this would be my width. So all I did, I want to place elastic at the top here on the lining, and then I also want to place it at the bottom. So say my lining is 15 inches across, I cut my elastic 12 inches. so that once I stretch it, you know, to kind of bunch up a little bit. So first thing I'm going to do is place elastic at the top of my lining here, and then also at the bottom. And I'll just switch to a zigzag stitch to get that on. Okay, dropped it. All right. So I'm going to put my elastic into my presser foot here to get me started. And I just got to check and make sure I have it turned the right way. Yeah, I do. Okay. Then I'll drop my presser foot. I'll come down a little bit because I want to be able to sew right up in here. So I'll get started a little bit and then I'll start to stretch my elastic out. And then what I do is just kind of put my elastic at the end here so that I kind of know where I am, and then just pull it to make it fit. Hang on, let me grab a pin. And grab that. Okay. Usually I just kind of look at it and go, yeah, that looks right, but I'll put a pin here just to keep it in place for me. Okay. And if you end up with a little extra elastic over here, which looks like I will, it's okay. Just cut it off when you sew it. Okay. So this is the top of my leg warmer and the inside. So that's what it looks like on the inside, and you won't even see it. So the outside of it looks like this because I want it, you know, a little fitted around the leg so that it's not falling down off of their leg. Okay, now I just need to do the bottom the same way. Get my elastic in here. Under my presser foot. Okay. At the end. Okay, this extra I'll end up cutting off. Okay, and let me go back to straight stitch. Okay, so what I do at this point, okay, so I took my faux fur, move that out of the way a little bit, and make sure you have it. Well, at this point, it doesn't matter, but just kind of look at it because, you know, it has a nap, meaning a one-way design. You want it to go this way. But since our dimensions are the same, it doesn't matter. But say you're making something that it does matter, just make sure you're laying it out correctly so that, you know, your nap goes whichever way it's supposed to. If it mattered, you know, you wouldn't want to do it this way. That'd be upside down. But for what we're doing, doesn't matter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take my lining and I'll put right sides together. This is the right side of my fur and the right side of my lining. And I'll just put a couple pins here at the top and the bottom because that's all you're doing is sewing them with the right sides together at the top and at the bottom. So I'll put a pin there to hold it. Then this would be my bottom edge down here. And see here, even though I trimmed my seam allowance, my fur is still in the way. Just move it back so that you are stitching where you trimmed it. And just kind of watch out for that as you're sewing. Okay, so just put one pin there for now. Okay, so now you're just stitching your lining to your fur across the top and across the bottom. me get my fur out of the way here. And you can see you have like a narrow seam allowance. It's not your standard 5/8. The way I did this, you have about maybe 3/8. Okay, so I'm going to start and just move my fur back. And you have to stretch your lining to fit it since we put the elastic in it already. So you just pull it to make it fit. And these came out so cute. I do want to make them with the kids in class. I'm thinking what I'll do is do all the prep work. Go ahead and just trim it all at home. Do all of that first. And then once I take it to class, all they have to do is sew it. And maybe they have a little bit of trimming to do, but not as much as they would. So we could do something like this. We wouldn't be doing a fur jacket or anything, but we could do this. Okay, almost at the end. And I can see my fur is a little bit longer. I'm just going to kind of bunch it up so that it all fits. You just got to keep moving it out of your way. Okay. So that will be my bottom because of the way the fur lays. And now I just need to do the top really quickly. And the top is easier because the fur is already laid down out of my way. Then from here, you just want to turn it to the right side. Normally, you trim seam allowances, but because our seam allowances are only about 3/8 of an inch anyway, you don't have to. So you just want to turn it right side out. Okay, so this is the outside. This would be our inside. Now, at this point, what I do, back up so you can see. So at this point, what I do, I want to fold it in half like this with my right sides together, and then I sew as much as I can. I'll for sure sew the entire length of the fur and some of the lining because you have to still be able to turn it. So I'm just going to match up my seams here at the top, make sure those are matched up, and I'll make sure my seams are matched up at the bottom, and everything else I'll just kind of stretch it and make it fit. And just folding my fur in so that it's in the inside here. Okay, so I'm just going to smooth it down, make sure I am matching at the bottom here. Just keep getting your fur out of the way. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to pin the rest of this. I'll just move it as I'm sewing. So I'll start here. Can you see how it's kind of turned? So this would be like my fur side and my lining here. So I'm just going to kind of open it up a little bit. And I'll start sewing here at the lining and then just go all the way down. This would be, say, the back of the leg. Go all the way down. And then put my lining together here. And just go, say as much as I can here. Before it gets a little bit too tight for me. So let me do that. Okay, So I will start with my lining. Hey Tess, how are you? Okay, so I'm going to start just on the lining side of it. And I'll turn my seams down. Just get over this elastic here that I didn't sew. Okay, and then my fur here, I just want to, just like we did when we were sewing the, what was it? What do you call it? The lining at the bottom. Just push it back out of your way. Okay. And you can see I have a very narrow seam allowance. Okay, just push your fur out of the way. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with the fur part. I'm back at the lining here. So I'm just going to keep going and sew over the lining part of it some. And that's about enough. If I go too far, I tend to get myself confused and forget how I'm supposed to turn it. So I don't do all that. So you can see I sewed, see, I'm not all the way cut, a little bit of lining on one side, so about 3 inches here and about 3 inches on the other side, and then this is my opening here. So from here, this is where I go and pull my fur out. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it like this. So this is the wrong side of it. And then what you could do with your opening is just do it, a hand stitch to close it up. Or probably, I know I'm not doing that. I'm just going to stitch it closed on the sewing machine. If I were in class, maybe I'd have the kids do it just because they need the practice and they don't want to do it. Whenever they don't want to do it, I make them do it anyway so that they can practice. Okay, so let me get this under here and I'll just sew that closed on my sewing machine. All right, so that one's done. Our lining is all closed up here. It's closed up in the inside. Grab these threads. Okay. And then you just turn it to the right side. Okay, so it ends up looking like this. Back up so you can see. So this would be the fur cuff. Let me show you another one I did. Hang on. As long as you're trimming the fur, you can pretty much use whatever fur you want to. Okay. So, let me grab this. So here's one I did. And then here's another one I used, this sort of gray fabric with the sparkles in it. So that one will be really pretty. And same thing, you just, have the lining on the inside. My seam is on the inside there. It's the exact same way. And like I said, they're both, my dimensions were 15 across and 13 inches high. So just play around with them. Have some fun. We'll see. So I'm going to I have to decide. I have two little cousins. So do I send them both the same thing so that they don't fight? Or do I send one that's more unicorn and one that's more gray with the silver tips? I don't know. But I know for sure I had to do the lining differently because otherwise somebody would lose something and then there'd be a fight. But you can see they're really easy. So, make them for your kids. I was thinking, could an adult wear these? I guess it depends on the adult. I think they're really cute for kids. So I'll definitely be making a few more of these for my cousins, and I'll have to pick up some more fur so that we can do them in class. And fur tends to be a little pricey, but you know, just try to get it on sale. And if we only used, I know like with half a yard, which is 18 inches, you can make 2 pair with half a yard of a fabric. Because the fur is really wide. It comes about 58 or 60 inches wide. So if you just buy half a yard of fabric, that will give you plenty to do 2 pair of these. Okay, hang on. All right, thank you guys for watching. I hope you found that pretty easy and understandable. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, and have a good night. Oh, and if you make them, tag me in a post or something so I can see what you did and see what fur you used. All right, have a good night, you guys. Finish.